Tom, moving on to one of your favorite topics, the FCC. Chair Jessica Rosenworcel is ready for faster broadband, and frankly, so are we all. Specifically, she's indicated that during the next annual evaluation of the country's broadband infrastructure, she'd likely increase the minimum speed to 100 megabits down and 20 megabits up. That may sound like basic connectivity to a lot of people, but frankly, the current minimum speed of 25 and 3 is pretty much what we're getting, even in places like beautiful Hudson, Ohio, as long as you're not within range of municipal fiber. The minimum speed requirements typically come into play in low income areas and rural communities where getting out of date infrastructure out of the way is a big problem. Also included in the notice of inquiry sent out is a future goal for a 1 gigabit down and 500 megabits up in a few years. That sounds pretty great. Is the FCC trying to make everything faster or just making rules that can't be followed?
So, with all due deference to the former occupant of that chair and his comically oversized coffee cup, uh, Chairwoman Rosenworcel is actually doing something instead of talking about doing something. So I like the way that she is effectively saying, listen, service providers, I know that you leave deep fingerprints in every dime that you spend. But if you want to meet our requirements, you're going to have to spend out. Now, granted, I live in a city in a rural state. So I have both sides of it. I have relatively fast communicative technologies here. I have a cable modem, and about a block that direction, I have a fiber line that I really wish that I could get into. However, when you go out into the communities out there, you're seeing, not dial up, but pretty close to it. 25 is the minimum. They consider that like a lifeline service. Have you ever used 25 megabit internet on a broadband connection? I have at my in-laws' house. It's terrible. It's really terrible. So what do? Well, we basically say if you want to meet our minimum specifications, you must raise the limits. And that means that you need to invest in your infrastructure. And before you think, oh, well, service providers won't do that, what is the alternative? Oh, that's right. It's 5G and LTE, which are already hitting well above 25 megabit downstream services. I mean, with 5G, you're hitting above 100 in most cases. So either the providers that are offering like AT&T, Verizon, and all of them are either going to take the service providers' money, or they're going to pressure the service providers to upgrade their infrastructure because they're being overwhelmed by customers who are dumping their local loop in favor of a mobility focused like 5G service because it's the fastest one they can get. And T-Mobile is already doing this. When you look at their in-home, basically microcell deployments that are getting 5G speeds in a house with no other kind of connectivity. That should be a huge problem for people. I love the aspirational aspect of this. Let's get to a gigabit per second. I don't think we're ever going to get there. And even if we do, I think it's going to be a small fortune because the amount of equipment upgrades that we're going to have to do to get there are problematic. But also think about this, the fact that Google Fiber is no longer doing like new active deployments like they were, that service was a huge driver to force service providers to do upgrades to keep pace with the opportunities that were afforded by that technology. Now that we don't have that, I mean, it's basically the FCC dragging and kicking and screaming into the future. So Chairwoman Rosenworcel will continue to sip a little bit of tea out of a reasonably sized coffee cup and make them do what they're supposed to be doing anyway, which is providing their customers with stuff that your customers want. I mean, how hard can it be?